With the recent fervor associated with Avatar The Last Airbender, I can't help but find myself examining the extended universe once again and considering the many intricacies that layer the backgrounds of both The Last Airbender and The Legend of Korra. In particular, I would like to take a look at the political nuances that exist with the antagonists of both series and make connections to prominent philosophies that seem to have influenced their ideologies. Avatar The Last Airbender is rich with diversity in both its settings and characters, which serve to confront the viewer with a variety of questions that may not seem entirely clear at the outset. Its villains, however, are based on ideologies that are fairly ordinary when it comes to the antagonist role. Zhao and Ozai are both clearly motivated by a thirst for power and a desire to transform themselves into something greater than what they currently identify themselves as. In Book 1, Zhao wants to bring down the Northern Water Tribe through asserting his dominance over the Moon Spirit. He wants to become the man who darkened the moon, Zhao the Moonslayer, Zhao the Conqueror, Zhao the Invincible. Ozai is remarkably similar. Rather than laying siege to the Northern Water Tribe, Ozai instead focuses his attention on burning the Earth Kingdom. He wants to become the supreme ruler of the world, not as Fire Lord, but as Phoenix King. Azula is not as clear cut as both Ozai and Zhao in terms of her motivations and aspirations. Even if she does show loyalty to the Fire Nation and is vested in asserting its dominance over all other nations, she isn't really defined by a particular philosophy or ideology. For Zhao and Ozai, however, their drives for power seem very attuned to the ideas of Nietzsche in relation to the concept of the Übermensch. The Übermensch, or Overman, is a person who puts everything on the line for the sake of human advancement. This is contrary to what Nietzsche calls the last man, or the person who is complacent and content with living in a continued state of comfort. Nietzsche has stated, "What is the ape to man? A laughingstock or a painful embarrassment? And the man shall be just that for the overman, a laughingstock or a painful embarrassment." Both Zhao and Ozai want to become something greater in the attainment of their goals, as attested by their title changes as they go about producing their new world orders. They prioritize their goals, remain headstrong, and lay down everything on the line in order to achieve what they see as a greater version of the world, with their respective selves leading at the forefront. The Legend of Korra possesses villains motivated by ideologies that are much more nuanced than those of the villains in its predecessor. Amon has been consistently called a Marxist by viewers, and I would tend to agree with this assessment. Marx developed his ideas when industrialization began to formulate an integral part of European and American society. He opposed the oppression faced by workers, referred to in Marxist writings as the proletariat, who were tasked with menial jobs, treated poorly, and given poor wages in an increasingly industrialized and capitalistic society. Marx believed that the proletariat would attain collective consciousness of their situations, mobilize against the capitalistic elite, control the means of production that forced them to engage in a dehumanizing lifestyle, and ultimately produce a classless society. Such is the basic conception of communism. These ideas correlate very well with Amon, who condemns the inequality between benders and non-benders. He advocates for the mobilization of non-benders to counter the oppression they face from benders as he moves towards his vision of a state of equality by taking people's bending away. I think, however, it would be more accurate to compare Amon to the ideas of Lenin, a communist who added his own notions to Marx's version of communism. In Leninism, the proletariat does not just achieve social awareness of their situation that leads them to mobilize. Instead, there is a centralized group of people in a societal social position greater than that of the proletariat that acts as a guide and mentor to members of the oppressed class. This group, in Lenin's terms, is called the vanguard of the proletariat. In Republic City, it seems to me that the vanguard of the proletariat comprises the equalists. The equalists are trained in chi blocking, have connections with tech giants that supply them with weapons that non-benders can use against benders, and routinely communicates with the populace via radio and through rallies. Amon and his militant forces rouse the spirits of non-benders in Republic City and give them the means to rebel against the benders who are subjugating them. I don't believe that he thinks that non-benders can revolt against benders, or even that they would want to without outside help. As such, I believe his ideology is based on a Leninist conception of revolutionary movement toward equality. I wouldn't necessarily assert that Unalaq's ideas tie in very well to a particular philosophical ideology, but I certainly would characterize him as a fundamentalist. Unalaq condemns the Spirit Festival for not maintaining a focus on respect to the spirits, and instead transforming to a celebration that places very little focus on any spiritual element whatsoever. Particularly, he believes that humans and spirits are experiencing a disconnect that he does not think should exist, which is why he wants to usher in a new age, leading both spirits and humans as the Dark Avatar. Next is Zahir. I talked a little bit about Zahir's philosophy in my Defense of Legend of Korra video, so definitely check that out if you haven't, but he is generally considered to be a violent anarchist. While Nietzsche certainly wasn't an anarchist, some of his ideas do relate to Zahir's own conceptions. Nietzsche wrote, "Those frightening fortifications with which the organization of the state protected itself against the old instincts for freedom. Punishment belongs above all to these fortifications, made all these instincts of the wild, free roaming man turn backwards against man himself. Enmity, cruelty, joy in pursuit, in attack, in change, in destruction, all those turn themselves against the possessors of such instincts. In other words, the organization of the state obstructs the natural freedoms that people possess and prevents them from being able to act on their instincts, thereby damaging individuals by causing them to internalize everything that they cannot outright express." Like Nietzsche, Zahir has an inherent problem with the organization of the state and world leaders that prevent people from being able to engage in true freedom. The natural order is disorder. In Zahir's estimation, humans should not have their freedoms reined in by figures of authority. That's why he does not condemn the looting or violence that takes place once the walls of Ba Sing Se come crashing down. The only person that should be trusted to hold the freedom of an individual is that individual. Each person acts independently, and there are no structures in place to tell people what they can and cannot do. Complete freedom can only exist when every person has absolute control of their own actions. States and world leaders only serve to diminish the individual freedoms that can exist for a person. Last is Kuvira. Kuvira's actions and ideology can be boiled down to one word: order. Kuvira spends her time creating a united Earth Kingdom with herself as the ultimate ruler of the entire territory. Kuvira's ideology seems to correlate very closely with that of Thomas Hobbes in the Leviathan. Hobbes believed that there should be one ultimate authority leading a country. This authority, which Hobbes dubs the Leviathan, obtains its power when people form a contract with one another to give up their rights of complete freedom in the state of nature, which, interestingly enough, is what Zahira envisions the world should look like, and vest their alienated power into a centralized authority. People create this contract in order to protect their lives, so the Leviathan is able to engage in any action that furthers the goal of maintaining the lives of subjects. Kuvira demands that such loyalty be given to her in the process of centralizing the Earth Kingdom. Her title as the Great Uniter is basically synonymous with the Leviathan, and people agree to follow her in order to maintain their safety and subsistence. Kuvira explains that those subjects who she rules over perform actions to the benefit of the entire Earth Kingdom in whatever way she sees fit. Thus, so long as their lives are preserved, Kuvira believes that she has complete discretion to use her subjects in any way she desires in order to maintain the function of her entire territory. This is a very Hobbesian perspective. And so there you have the different political perspectives associated with the antagonists of both The Legend of Korra and Avatar The Last Airbender. Be sure to leave your thoughts in the comments and subscribe for more. See ya!